Dasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jata Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome everybody. Wonderful to be here with you this morning. We've been entering into a new area of our course, which has to do with the 4 paths of yoga. 4 paths, 4 different approaches, 4 different strategies for dealing with the mind for the purpose of the self experiencing their own true nature. And yesterday we spoke about Ashtanga Yoga, where the strategy was to still the mind, to hold the mind on one object, rather than allowing it to constantly fluctuate as it tends to do, almost inevitably does, unless there's incredibly focused effort to still it. Ashtanga Yoga is the incredibly focused effort to do just that, to hold that mind on one spot, in a sense, turn it off, so that we can actually feel our own nature underneath it in a state called samadhi, in a very elusive state called samadhi. One thing I didn't mention, maybe I'll really get into this more depth once we've discussed all 4 paths, but commonly the Ashtanga yogis were trying to still that mind, to go within, to connect with the Paramatma in their own heart. This is certainly the way the Bhagavad Gita describes it. This is the way the Srimad Bhagavatam describes it. Many of the most important texts on yoga will speak about this effort of Ashtanga Yoga with the specific goal, particular goal, to meet, to connect with, to hear from the Paramatma, God within the heart. Like that. Okay, but today we're talking about the next of our 4 paths, Jnana Yoga. Jnana means knowledge. They say that the Greek word gnosis comes from it. Jnana, gnosis, knowledge in English. And the idea here is that the Jnana yogis identify ignorance of our nature, misidentification of who we are, like this, a misunderstanding, you could call it ignorance, as our problem. That's the problem in the mind. We've discussed this in some depth. We have ideas in our mind within the manas, the impulsive part of the mind, of what I need to be happy. I'll be happy when I get this or I get that. The Jnana yogis are saying that's all ignorance. There's no truth to it. We also have ignorance in the sense of we have false ideas of who I am in the ahankara, in the buddhi. So Jnana Yoga, the idea is that using the buddhi, the reasoning functioning part of the mind, of the chitta, of the cognitive faculty, that reflective, instrument of judgment and discernment and reasoning, we're going to use that to clear the ignorance out of the manas and the ahankara, out of the impulsive mind and the ego. We're going to, wherever we find ignorance, we're going to confront it with the intellect and correct it, straighten it out, or you could say break it. We're going to go through all of the different files in the computer of our mind, see where the attachments lie, put those attachments up on the screen, analyze them with cold, stoic reasoning, and break every one of them. Recognize the weaknesses in them and break it. It to most people can seem cold, stark. And we'll get into that as we go. But questions so far? Does that logic of that make sense to you? Right? Yes, Stephen. I think the emotions are a blend of all of these functions of the mind. Manas is a reaction, but that reaction is it's like a programmed reaction, but that reaction is going to play out in our emotions. If my manas is programmed to respond to the color red as exciting, then how that blends with my ego and the samskars that are coming up from underneath, it'll become a blend of all of these, our emotions. Okay, let's get right into this. Here's the fundamental idea. We talked about this tree, this upside down banyan tree, which the Bhagavad Gita says it represents the world that we're in, the illusory world that we're in. And does anyone remember how we break ourselves free from that, this illusory tree? What the Gita said? I'm sorry? Yeah, or it literally actually was very close, but the acts of detachment, right? Detachment, vairagya. Sanskrit word for detachment is vairagya. But the Sanskrit word vairagya, detachment, is very closely associated and often combined with the word jnana, knowledge and detachment, jnana vairagya. These two are because when you have knowledge, when you really can see this world for what it is, when you have the knowledge to discriminate between what is real and what is unreal, what is truth and what is illusion, then naturally you become detached from it, once you see it for what it is. Does that make sense? Everybody with me there? I'm gonna share a little bit of a story that connects this knowledge and detachment, so maybe we can make that connection all the stronger. How many of you have seen the television show The Twilight Zone before? Raise your hand. So most do not know of this. Okay, maybe it's an American phenomenon. When I was a kid, we used to stay up late to watch this. They would play the reruns on like at midnight. And it was like a show in the late 50s, early 60s, black and white television show. And every show had a completely different cast of characters and a completely different, it was like each show was an individual. It stood on its own. It wasn't part of a continuing series. But they were thoughtful. It was they would make you think about life. And one of them, and there was kind of this really stoic kind of narrator that would kind of just like step into the screen and just in a really stoic way just kind of start talking about, what's going on. And I don't know the words to describe him exactly, but he was really cool. And he was like, he was kind of like floating above you. and you would feel like, oh no, I'm stuck in some bizarre world and he's beyond it. And, and I've got some challenging thoughts to consider. And so this one opened up with, it looks like you're looking down on a desert and there's a kind of like a shack, like an old little house, not much of a house, out in the middle of the desert. And the narrator starts speaking and he's saying that this isn't exactly a desert. This is an asteroid and it's in the future. And in the future, rather than put people in prison, they fly them off to an asteroid and leave you on the asteroid, and you have to live alone there. And he's describing that this man is living here all alone and dying of loneliness, right? He's like just experiencing this intense pain of being entirely isolated off on this asteroid by himself. And then a rocket ship lands, and a man gets off the rocket ship, and he kind of is the rep, almost like the prison guard. He's there to bring supplies from Earth to this prisoner who's living on an asteroid. And when the prisoner sees him, he's like, "Oh, it's so good to see you," because he's just dying to talk to anyone. And the man says, "Yeah, I want to let you know that back on Earth, a lot of people think that you're innocent, and they're looking at your case again, and I'm hoping someday that when I come back here, that I'm going to tell you that they found you innocent. I'm going to bring you back, but." And the prisoner's like, well, just please stay, spend some time with me, like, let's sit down, let's talk. He's like, I wish I could, but the asteroid is moving and the Earth is moving, and if I don't get back in there and fly away right now, I'll never make it back to Earth. He said, but again, I hope I'm going to be able to come back and take you back to Earth someday. And meanwhile, I know it's very hard to be here all alone. So I brought something for you. It's in that big crate right there, and there's this big wooden crate. And he says, and I'll see you in a few months, because he comes back every 3 months. So he gets on the rocket ship and he flies off. And now this man is sitting there with this crate. And he opens up the crate, cracks it open, and takes the top off. And inside is a robot. A robot. But the robot looks like an attractive woman. And she's very realistic, like entirely realistic. So she kind of like, as soon as the crate's open, she kind of comes to life. And she says, hello, my name's Alicia. What's your name? And in that moment, he thinks, what is this? I'm supposed to, I'm so pitiful that I'm supposed to relate to a machine as if it's a human. Has it come to this, so he's got, right now he has jnana. He recognizes what's real and what's unreal, right? This is not a real person. This is not a feeling, conscious human being. This is a machine just like any other machine. He knows this very clearly. He's got the knowledge. He's got the jnana. And therefore, he's got the detachment. So she's saying, no, I want to be your friend. And he's saying, just leave me alone, I'm not going to play this game. But she keeps persisting, no, talk to me. I'm here for you. And what might have been seductive if it was a real human being, for him, he's just like, will not play this game. It's like beneath him to play this game. But she keeps persisting, and he keeps insisting, and it's going on. And finally, he pushes the robot away from him. And when he pushes her, the robot kind of like crashes on the ground kind of hard. And then the robot turns, she's like down on the ground, and she turns up and looks at him. And a little tear comes out of her eye and rolls down her cheek. And when he sees that tear, it touches some sentiment within his own mind. And what do you think he does? Yeah, he says, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Like that. What is that the beginning of? Yeah, illusion or ignorance, right? Now he let it in a little bit. Now he's taking illusion for reality. Right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. Like that. And then the show kind of starts to fast forward, and it's showing them like walking together, talking together, laughing together, holding hands, enjoying the company of one another. He starts to fall in love with the robot. Right? Now he's in full illusion. He's forgotten that this is illusion and it's not reality. Right? His emotions have overridden his intellect. Right? And now he's become convinced, I love Alicia. So then the rocket ship comes back sometime later. And the man's coming down the steps of the rocket ship. And he's saying, they had ways of portraying these things back in the 50s. He says, I've got wonderful news for you. They've looked at your case back on Earth. They found you innocent. I'm here today not to deliver supplies, but to take you back to Earth. And he's like, oh my God, I've been waiting to hear this. This is such great news. Freedom, right? He's a prisoner. He's locked up. And now he has, the door to freedom has opened up to him. And the man says, but, the asteroid's moving and the Earth is moving, so we need to get on, the rocket ship right now. So hurry up. If there's anything you want to bring, grab it and let's go. He says, bring? Well, what do I have? I got nothing here that I need to bring. I'm going back to Earth. Let me just grab Alicia and we're ready to go. And he says, Alicia? He goes, Alicia. And he points to the robot. And he's like, no, you don't understand. There's only so much fuel in the rocket ship. We can only carry so much weight. If we tried to bring that much weight back, we'd never make it back to Earth. When I said grab something, I meant like a shirt or something like that. Come on, we got to go right now. And he said, but I can't leave her behind. It's like, so now you have one person with jnana who recognizes what's real and what's illusion, and one person totally in illusion, right? And the prison guard, he can see he's stuck, right? His desires have him stuck in prison. And he's incapable, even though the door is open, he's incapable of taking the simple steps that he needs to take to free himself. And the time is ticking away. So there's no time to have a long talk with him about this. So what he does is he takes out his gun and he aims it at the robot. And the guy's like, no, don't do it. Now he's suffering, right? Over nothing. You understand? His illusion is now the cause of his suffering. And he takes out the gun and he's like, please don't do it. And he shoots. And the robot gets hit and then crashes on the ground. And then the face comes off of the robot. And you can see like gears and wires. And even like the voice recording on the robot is like, I forget what it was saying, but it's like I don't know if it's saying like, don't shoot me, don't shoot. And it just like keeps repeating. And then the guy witnesses, he gets this wake-up call. It's hard, but it's truth. It's truth that he didn't want to experience, but now he's experiencing it, but it was very painful for him to face that truth. And it's like, and then he goes like, thank you. Thank you for giving me this truth. It was cold. It was completely lacking any sentiment, right? Cold, stoic, stark, brutal, truth. Thank you. And then he slowly starts walking up those steps on the rocket ship and he goes. Now he has the detachment again, right? It's a little raw, but now he's got the knowledge and he's able to go. These Jnana yogis are saying we're like that, right? We are attached to all kind of illusory forms that aren't real. We've developed deep sentimental emotions about them and attachments to them. And although the world of freedom, although moksha is available to us with truth, we have a hard time accepting that truth. But if you take truth and you focus it on illusion, you can clear away the illusion and become free, right? But it's going to mean going through the files of your mind, finding all the false sentiments that are there, analyzing them with this cold, stoic analysis, and breaking every attachment that you have inside you. If this world is a virtual, picture this world as a virtual reality. We are in that virtual reality. Our body is not real. It's a composition of this artificial, digital kind of programming. Our home is the same. The food that we enjoy is the same. Our romantic partner's body is the same, right? Our soft bed is the same. All of these things, they're saying, they're not real. Brahman is real. Spirit is real. And this world is all illusory. This is how the Jnana yogis present things. And yet, we're taking it all as real. We think that it's real. We become attached to it, develop these deep emotional attachments to it. Now imagine you're in that virtual reality and someone comes into that virtual reality, another person in another virtual body, but they're speaking to you. And they're telling you that you're in a virtual world and that you have a much better existence outside this world. This virtual world is holding you down. You are suffering because you're in this virtual world, because it's programmed with time. It's programmed with karma, which is creating all this suffering in this world. You're meant to recognize that it's virtual and free yourself. And at first you're like, get out of here. Where are you telling me this kind of fantasy, crazy ideas? Tell me this isn't real. But the more that the person speaks to you, and the more that you take the knowledge that they're giving you, and the more that you go and you look within your own mind and it begins to make sense, gradually you become convinced he's right. I'm in a virtual world and I want moksha. I want to become free. But here's the key. There's only one way out. Your being in that world is due to your desire or due to your attachment, right? And you don't get out until in every corner of your mind, there is no longer even a trace of attachment for the virtual world. You have to recognize so clearly, just like when the robot got shot and hit the ground and the face came off. You have to realize so clearly that this is not real, that you have no desire for anything in it anymore. 100%. And once you get it 100%, it's all illusion. I don't want it. You're free. Make sense? Everybody with me? That's again, Bhagavad Gita was saying, you need to cut, with the weapon of detachment, you need to cut down the tree of illusion and then you become free. Same idea. All right? But here's the problem, is that I find that to whatever extent I engage with my virtual world, when I lie down on my soft, warm virtual bed, when I taste some tasty virtual food, when I embrace, my virtual love interest, it brings me back into illusion, right? The more I engage with it, the more I begin to see illusion as reality, right? That's my problem. So if through engaging with this world, it's like this. In order to enjoy illusion, we need to be in illusion. You understand? In order to enjoy something that's not real, you have to think it's real. And so the more I try to enjoy this virtual world, the more my mind accepts it as real. It's because I want to enjoy it. If you want to enjoy it, okay, then enter into illusion. It's almost like, if there's some kids playing with let's say they're sitting in a cardboard box and they're pretending it's a car and they're racing one another and they're really getting into it. You say, well, that's just a cardboard box. It's like, shut up. It's like we're trying to have fun here. We want to be in the illusion, right? And so if by engaging with this world, I go deeper into illusion, I become more attached and I become more bound. But my goal is to become unbound, to become free. Then what must I do? And I'll say it again. If by engaging with this world I become bound, then what must I do if I want to become free? Disengage. Disengage from the world. Walk away from your family. Walk away from your home. Walk away from your job. Walk away from all these, because whenever you're engaging with these, it tends to pull you back into illusion. Walk away from it all. Go up into the mountains, find yourself a cave, isolate yourself, go deep within yourself, analyze every one of those desires and attachments that you have and break them all, right? Again, cold, stark, not one drop of sentimentality. That's Jnana Yoga. The Jnana Yogis will have poetry written that's like saying things like, when your little child is coming up to you, walking, kind of waddling because they're taking their first steps. It looks so cute. And then they say these words, oh, mama, daddy. And it can't even say it right, and it just makes it all the more adorable. Cut that all off. Break that attachment. You've gone through this in lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, thinking this is my child, and by embracing them, I'll feel happiness. And every time comes along and separates you and reveals the truth, right? The face falls off of it. That this isn't my child, and we're not eternally bound. We're just for a moment brought together, and then we're separated forever. But because I still have the attachment, I take birth again. I become a parent again. I go through the whole thing again. Right? Yes? There's very few. Yes. Raise your hand if you're ready to walk away from your family right now. But there are other yogas that are going to be more accommodating to this. But Jnana Yoga, I'm sorry? That means that there will be other yogas that say, okay, you don't have to walk away from your family. You can view your family in another context, in a context of truth, and still maintain emotional attachments to them. But you have to, if you can see your family in relation to the truth, then by remaining attached to your family, you can actually be attached to the truth. But that requires a different perspective. So Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are going to provide perspectives by which one could remain with their family, love their family, have deep affection for the family, but not be an illusion. We'll get there, coming days, okay? You sound like a Jnana Yogi over here. Okay.
There is no truth other than consciousness, isn't there? There's no truth other than consciousness.
In one sense, there are two types of Jnana Yogis. And some of them say exactly what you just said. And some of them say that there's consciousness, which is real. There's spiritual energy, which is conscious, which is real. And there's material energy that is both real and unreal. And it must be understood clearly how it's real and how it's unreal. But will you be coming in the next couple of days? Okay. Because there, especially when we get to Bhakti, we're gonna analyze this in other ways. And so hang on to that. Let's get Jnana Yoga down today, and then we'll talk about alternative paths of overcoming the obstacle of the mind, including the desires within the mind and the false ideas of identity within the mind, in which one can engage with this world. See, Bhagavad Gita was all about Arjuna. Don't try to walk away from the world. Engage with the world, but do it as a yogi. Right? Even your emotion, even these ideas can be engaged in truth, and you can become free. So we'll get there. Okay. But again, even they have this poetry, like saying, cut all of that off. You must do it. I'm going to read to you a poem written by Shankaracharya, who is widely considered he is the father of Advaita Vedanta, which is a path of Jnana Yoga. I'm going to say right now that, again, there are two ways people can look at Jnana Yoga. But when we say that word, most people are going to think of Advaita Vedanta. Bhagavad Gita doesn't present Jnana Yoga as Advaita Vedanta. But similar, but a little different. And we'll get to that. But this is written by Shankaracharya. And this poem of his is called 5 Stanzas on the Loincloth. All right? So the loincloth, you all seen photos of Ramana Maharshi? It's just kind of a strap around the waist and a strap that goes underneath. You tie it in the back. That's how they lived. It's called Kalpina. So this is 5 stanzas glorifying it's really not glorifying the Kalpina, the loincloth, but the one who wears it is what he's glorifying. And this will give you an idea of the path of Jnana Yoga and how it's traditionally seen. Ready? Always reveling in thoughts of Vedanta, always satisfied with his beggar's morsel, wandering with the heart free of sorrow, sleeping at the foot of a tree for shelter, eating only much as fits in the palms of his hands, disregarding wealth like a torn cloth, satisfied fully by the bliss within him, curbing completely the cravings of his senses, immersed day and night in the bliss of spirit, witnessing the changes of mind and body, seeing himself as the changeless witness, heedless of the changing phases of the world, chanting the glories of Brahman, always contemplating only, I am spirit, living on alms and wandering freely, blessed indeed is the wearer of the loincloth. Okay, that give you an idea? This is the path of Jnana Yoga. This is the path where you walk away from the world and you just, again, I am spirit, I am spirit. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the attachments in the mind, I'm not the false identity. I am spirit, I am spirit. This is what I am. This is Jnana Yoga. You're reminding yourself of the truth again and again and again. You're reflecting on this truth in relation to whatever you're experiencing. And through this, you're convincing yourself. You're developing this rock solid conviction that all of this is unreal and I am real and I don't need it. I don't want it. I want to be free. Does that make sense? Clear? Questions? Yes, Vikramji.
My question is on the previous point that we spoke about, how you cut the upside down banyan tree with the axe of detachment.
Yes.
What exactly is that detachment? Like, what does that entail? Like, what does it mean to cut it with the axe of detachment? Because what I'm also learning is that Jnana Yoga obviously it's all about
Yes.
walking away. But then again, the Gita is telling us to cut the tree with the axe of detachment. So I'm just trying to understand what exactly that detachment means.
So yeah, from the Jnanic perspective, from let's say specifically, from Shankar's perspective, or from the perspective of Advaita Vedanta, there is only spirit, right? As we were speaking about a moment ago, there is only spirit. So whatever it is that I'm attached to has no reality, and I need to shine the light of knowledge on it. And when it's revealed for what it is, when the face falls, were you here when I was talking about the twilight zone? Okay, so when the face of it comes off, when the truth is seen, when I see it's not real, it's illusion, naturally detachment comes with it. It's like knowledge and detachment, they say, are like two sides of one coin. If you have knowledge, you necessarily have detachment. You're free. Bhakti yogis are going to approach it in a bit of a different way. They're going to say everything is God's energy, right? It's not mine. So I'm detached from it in that sense. Right? I see it as real in the sense that it's God's energy, and unreal in the sense that it's temporary, it's constantly in a change of flux. But in any case, I see it in relation to God. And to whatever extent I have influence over it, I make it an offering, right? The Hanuman and Sita, it's like Ravana thought Sita is mine, right? Hanuman said Sita is Ram's and returns Sita to Ram. Two different perspectives, but he's no less detached than a Jnana yogi, right? And so that's the idea. I can move through this world. Even my family, we'll get into it a little bit right now. Even my family, I see them as God's energy. I see them only in relation to God, rather than seeing my wife as like a source of my pleasure. I see my wife as a source of God's pleasure. And it may be that I enjoy pleasure in her company, but that's not the nature of that's not what my relationship with her is founded on or based on. It's like this. We can read what Krishna says about how to become free from that tree, right there from the 15th chapter. I don't know if I read this. I know I meant to. So he says, you have to cut yourself. This is text 5, so it's immediately following the 4 texts that describe the banyan tree, this illusory world. And Krishna says, those who are free from false prestige, illusion, false association, asatsanga, right? Who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, and who are freed material desire, right? who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, the Adipurusha, they attain to that eternal kingdom. They enter into the eternal realm, the spiritual realm. So this is the Bhakti Yogi's detachment, right? Detached from matter, attached to spirit, attached to Krishna. Okay. I thought maybe I could read you one more thing. This is from the book Siddhartha. Oh, but I need the phone to do it. Is it okay? Okay. How many of you read Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha? And for Europeans, I'm probably mispronounced that. You say Hesse? Is that how you say? Hermann, Germans here or Hesse? Hesse. Okay. Hermann Hesse. How many of you read Siddhartha before? All right. I find him to be a brilliant writer, and the way that he can, in a concise, poetic way, communicate so much, kind of blows my mind. And he does that here, I feel, where he's describing, for those that haven't read Siddhartha, it opens up with the description of Siddhartha himself. He's a young man. He's handsome. He's brilliant, intelligent. He's kind of just admired by everyone, in his village. He's a Brahmana, a young Brahmana. And he's practicing meditation with his friend named Govinda. And they come out of their meditation practice, and Siddhartha says to Govinda, Govinda, how was your meditation today? How are you feeling? Oh, wonderful. Every day it just feels like it's getting a little better and a little better. And, he's all enthusiastic. And Govinda says to Siddhartha, how about you, Siddhartha? How are you feeling about your meditation practice today? I feel like I'm getting nowhere. I feel like I could do this the rest of my life and get nowhere. I feel like there's no one in our village who has actually achieved the goal of moksha through this meditation, and nobody here ever will. And Govinda's like, whoa, because Govinda not only is Siddhartha's friend, but he's kind of like really admires Siddhartha as well. And so Siddhartha says, and therefore, tomorrow I will leave and join the samanas, the sadhus, the wandering mendicants, the naked, wandering, ash-covered, dreadlocked mendicants. And Govinda's like, whoa, do it. No, don't go. He can't believe that he's saying this. I'll tell the story just a bit, because it just says so much. So Siddhartha goes home. It's the evening now. And his father, who's a Brahmana, is sitting. Likely he has a little table like this set in front of him, and maybe some deity in front of him, perhaps. And he's performing some meditative ritual that he does every evening. Maybe it's a little fire. I'm not sure what he was doing. And Siddhartha just stands behind him and doesn't say anything. And then eventually his father says, you have something to say? And Siddhartha says, tomorrow I will go and join the samanas. Just like that. And you see, like, there's no wasted words here. There's not these aren't people whose minds have been just like corroded and corrupted with just so much silliness and nonsense and garbage that like we've all been exposed to, through television and films. And, it's just like they spent their time contemplating valuable content, and the way they communicate, so he says, you have something to say? Yes, tomorrow I'll join the samanas. Now, most parents go, what are you talking about? That's not, you can't do that. The father just sits there silently for a moment, thinks about it, and then responds, no, tomorrow you will not go with the samanas. Right? He's the authority. He's always been recognized by the authority by his son, respected. They recognize the nature of the relationship. Siddhartha says, tomorrow I will go with the samanas. His father says, you'll disobey your father? No, I will not disobey my father. What does that mean? So then his father sits there and thinks about it and then gets up and lies down to go to bed. And he's lying there trying to sleep and he just can't sleep because when he says, I'm going to go join the summoners, that means I never see my son again, right? I leave home, I become a renunciate. These renunciates, they don't come back to home is where all the attachments are. Home is where all the illusion is strongest. You walk away, you never come back. So he's, obviously his father is quite torn about this. An hour passes and he can't sleep. He gets up and he goes back and looks in the room where he was talking to Siddhartha, and Siddhartha is still standing in the exact same spot, completely focused, staring in the exact same spot he was before. He hasn't budged an inch. His father looks at this and sends a message, He goes back and tries to sleep. He comes back an hour later, still can't sleep. He looks, Siddhartha's still right there. He does this every hour throughout the night. He comes back just before it starts to get light out and he sees Siddhartha still there. His knees are shaking, because he hasn't budged an inch. And he's looking at him. And what does he realize? He's already gone. That boy that I thought was my son, that's not him anymore, He's determined. Even if I tried to keep him, he wouldn't be the same. He's gone in his mind. And he recognizes it. And he has the knowledge and he has the insight and he has the detachment. It might not have been easy. But he says, okay, today you go with the samanas. He says, if you find the bliss that you're looking for, you come back and teach it to me. He says, if you don't find it, then you come back and we'll do our rituals together. Now go say goodbye to your mother. And Siddhartha says goodbye to his mother, who's obviously must be totally, it doesn't mention anything, but you could imagine this is like a tearful scene. But he's hardened himself, right? My mother's crying and saying, don't go, I'm going. I'm going. And as he's leaving, Govinda comes running along with him to join him. And the two of them leave their village together to join the renunciates. Okay. So what I'm going to read to you right now, you see what I mean about it's such quality writing. It's such quality. You learn so much about Vedic culture, about what a Brahmana is. About what their relationships, so much is in that very short, few paragraphs. Now we pick up right from that point where they're leaving. Ready? On the evening of this day, they caught up with the ascetics, the gaunt samanas, and offered to accompany them, promising obedience. They were accepted. Okay, so these are these men. If you see the real one, you go to Kumbh Mela, you could maybe see they're really serious. They're cold in how they deal with you. And these are young men coming, right? The teenagers. They're saying, "Can we join you? Can we practice with you? We promise we'll do whatever you say." Say, okay, they're accepted. Siddhartha gave his robe to a poor Brahmin on the road. He now wore only his loincloth and an earth-hued wrap that had been cut but not sewn. He ate only once a day and only food that had not been cooked. He fasted for 15 days. He fasted for 28 days. The flesh vanished from his thighs and cheeks. Hot tears flickered in his enlarged eyes. The nails grew long on his withering fingers, and from his chin grew a dry, patchy beard. His gaze was like ice when he came upon women. His mouth twitched with contempt when he walked through a town full of elegantly clothed people. He observed merchants doing business, princes on their way to the hunt, the bereaved mourning their dead, whores soliciting, doctors tending to patients, priests choosing the day when the seeds would be sown, lovers making love, mothers nursing their infants, and all these things were unworthy of being looked upon by him. It was all a lie. It all stank of lies. It all gave the illusion of meaning and happiness. And it all was just putrefaction that no one would admit to. Bitter was the taste of the world. Life was torment. Before him, Siddhartha saw a single goal: to become empty empty of thirst, empty of want, empty of dream, empty of joy and sorrow, to let the ego perish, to be I no longer, to find peace with an empty heart, and await the miraculous with thoughts free of self. This was his goal. When all ego had been overcome, had perished, when every longing and every drive in his heart had fallen silent, only then could the unknown awaken, the utmost awaken, the great secret, that innermost core of being that is no longer self. Silent, Siddhartha stood beneath the sun's vertical rays, glowing with pain, glowing with thirst, stood there until he no longer felt pain or thirst. Silent he stood in the monsoon season. Water trickled from his hair onto his freezing shoulders, over freezing hips and legs. But the penitent stood until shoulders and legs no longer froze, until they fell silent and were still. Okay? You get a picture? This is a type of Jnani. We could call this person not only a Jnani, but a tapasvi, right? Commonly, this analysis, this cold, sentimental analysis is accompanied by renunciation. You're walking away from the world. But also you may be performing austerities, because the austerities are a way where you take control of the mind. You no longer are controlled by the mind. We were talking about this a little last night in the question and answer booth. Sometimes you see a yogi that has his hand up in the air. They keep it there. They take a vow. I'm going to hold this hand up for 15 years. Even when I go to sleep, I kind of tie my hand up. You know, why would someone do this kind of thing? It's a way of saying, I no longer listen to, for many, many lifetimes, I followed the instructions of my mind. When my mind says this is uncomfortable, I follow the mind's programming. Right? But now I'm going to take control. I'm going to put my hand up in the air, and before very long at all, my mind's going to say, put the arm down. This is uncomfortable. And when it does, I'm going to ignore it. And then it's going to say it again. And 5 minutes later, it's really going to start to say it. And 10 more minutes after that, it's going to start to scream, put the arm down. And I'm going to say, I've listened to you, oh mind, you know, for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Now I'm in control, right? With this one act of defiance, I establish my control over the mind. And eventually the mind surrenders. Eventually the mind says, I tried and I tried and I tried. I couldn't convince him, you know, to follow my programming, and the mind becomes weaker, weaker, weaker. And the yogi becomes stronger, 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 like this. And then eventually he's free. Something like that. Make sense? Okay, so this is Jnana Yoga. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, and this is, I'll cover this later, I think, once I cover all the things. But the Bhagavad Gita validates all four paths. But it teaches that they all culminate in bhakti. Because it's teaching that our true nature is to love. And so, therefore, Ashtanga Yoga, why some Ashtanga Yogis might practice it to experience kaivalya, just separation from the material energy and freedom from it. The Bhagavad Gita teaches it as a path to find God within the heart, with love. Read the 6th chapter, it's totally where it goes. You know, in Jnana Yoga, where like the Advaita Vedantin practices it to fully experience the experience I am Brahman, right? And experience the peace and the oneness. In the Bhagavad Gita, that path is described as a very difficult path, that if followed fully can eventually culminate in bhakti. But there Krishna says, Bahunam Janmana Ante, that Bahunam Janmana, after many births and deaths, Ante, at the end of them all, Jnanavan, when one fully possesses jnana, Mam Prapadyante, then they surrender unto me. In other words, it's not only that my material attachments have me in illusion and therefore suffering, and I'll find peace when I break them. Krishna is saying, no, my attachments and illusion are prohibiting me from reconnecting with the eternal object of my divine love. So once I have that jnana and my material desires are broken, it opens me up to fully surrender myself. Jnanavan mam prapadyante, to surrender unto Krishna. Right? So Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga. And Krishna is going to say, everything that you do, make it an offering to me. So Karma Yoga culminates in Bhakti. Jnana Yoga culminates in Bhakti. Ashtanga Yoga culminates in Bhakti. They're all valid paths. But people use these paths, they use these practices with different conceptions. And based on their conception or based on their motive, it may or may not lead to Bhakti. But the Bhagavad Gita teaches them all as eventually culminating in Bhakti. They're not completed until they culminate in Bhakti. We're out of time right now. I hope that gave us a an idea about Jnana Yoga. We'll go into this. We'll discuss now that it's out there. This idea we can discuss it in the context of today's conversation. But I tried to cover a large topic in a short time. I hope that was helpful. I look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow, where we'll talk about Karma Yoga. Thank you so much. Hari Om Tat Sat.